Everything's coming up sevens for Fortnite here lately. Chapter 7 is well underway. We're also in the middle of Season 7 of Fortnite OG, and the 7 are back as a focal point in the Fortnite storyline. It wouldn't even surprise me at all at this point if this is the year that we finally see Final Fantasy VII characters in the game, because you know they love to do that kind of stuff. But before we get any further into Chapter 7, I wanted to take time and go back and look at all of the previous seasons I've played up until now. I started playing this game back in 2020, and a lot has happened since then. So why don't we go back and make a little tier list and pit the seasons against each other. Before we begin, I just want to make it clear, this is just my opinion, and I'm doing this for fun. And I can always change my mind later, so don't take this too seriously. Alright, first off, we're going to start with the season that I first dropped into the island, Chapter 2, Season 2, The Spies Season. This season would give us characters that would go on to become iconic like Meowscles and Midas, and Deadpool was in the game, being the first collab to end up in a battle pass. The Deadpool skin was the main reason I played this game, and I didn't care too much about the story at the time, but as the season went on and we had the Travis Scott event and then eventually the device, I fell in love with it and had to have more. I've got to put Season 2, Chapter 2 in the A tier. Now, the device event led us right into Chapter 2, Season 3, where almost the entire island was underwater for a while. Each week, the water would recede until we eventually got the entire island back as it was, and then they introduced driving for the first time. Aquaman was in the Battle Pass, and I did enjoy the flooded map and the loot sharks and everything like that, but I felt like this season was kind of empty at its core, so I think the best I can place this season is in the C tier. Just before Season 3 ended, Thor's hammer Mjolnir crashed into the island, signifying the beginning of the Chapter 2 Season 4 Nexus War. The entire Battle Pass was filled with iconic Marvel characters, and their goal was to join up together to take on the approaching Galactus. Iron Man, Doctor Doom, and Wolverine were all bosses on the map, with Logan being one of the hardest bosses the game has ever produced. The build-up for this one felt like it took a while, but with all the superpowers in the game, everything just felt really cool and fun, so I've got to put this one up in the A tier. Now, though we did defeat Galactus and send him back where he came from, this left the 0 point exposed and unstable, leading us right into Chapter 2, Season 5. This one was all about bringing in bounty hunters from across the Omniverse to stop the loopers from escaping the loop. It was collabs galore this season, with everyone from The Mandalorian, Master Chief, Kratos, Ryu and Chun-Li, and even the Predator showing up. There was just a whole lot of chaos this season. This was also a major part of the storyline where we see Agent Jones break away from the Imagined Order and start the conflict between them and the Seven when the Foundation shows up to try to save the 0 point at the end of the season. Now, I do have one major gripe with this season, and it's that season's main gameplay gimmick, the sand tunneling. Whenever it worked, it was great, but it was so buggy that they had to disable it several times, and for that, I can't put it up in the A tier no matter how much I enjoyed it. But everything else was pretty fun, so I'm sticking it in the B tier. Now, the Foundation was able to keep the 0 point from exploding, but both he and Agent Jones got lost because of it. This brings us into Chapter 2, Season 6, Primal, where time seems to be distorted a bit on the island, bringing in raptors of all things. Now, the main character of this season was a character named Raz, who had been corrupted by a piece of the original Kevin the Cube. And that's about all I got for this season. I mean, the raptors being there were kinda cool because they could run faster than the players, and they were a pretty decent threat. But I just feel like this season could have been more interesting, and it just felt like it never really tapped into its true potential. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna stick this one in the C tier. I kinda want to put it in D tier, but I don't remember hating it, so C's probably best for it. Just before the end of Season 6, we started seeing players being randomly abducted by UFOs. And that, of course, brings us into the Invasion storyline, where we are joining forces with the Imagined Order to take on the Last Reality. Here we finally get to meet Dr. Sloan in person, and she wants us to help her push back the invading Chimera. We had some pretty cool weapons this season, and the little flying UFO vehicles that we got to pilot were a lot of fun. There was even a minigame aspect of it where you were dragged into one of the larger UFOs that were stationed over certain POIs, and you could get some pretty good loot out of them. Of course, we ended up finding out that trusting Dr. Sloan is not necessarily the best idea because she was willing to sacrifice all of us in order to take down the big mothership. However, all blowing up the mothership did was unleash an army of cubes onto the island, which just made everything else worse. Rick from Rick and Morty and Superman were in the Battle Pass, and I love the inclusion of Dr. Sloan as a character and getting to see this IO versus Last Reality war start to play out. Overall, very fun season. I'm sticking it in the A tier. With cubes all over the island, it was a breeze for the Cube Queen to just come in and set up shop right in the middle of the island. This was even the focus of Fortnitemares that year, where we saw the introduction of the Caretaker boss, which was really cool in my opinion. Then came the end, the final live event of Chapter 2, and boy did a lot happen. The blue cube from the previous event was there to help us. It didn't really have much effect, and the Cube Queen pretty much just rolled over the entire squad. The IO had abandoned the fight to go torture Jonesy, but the Foundation finally returned and saved them, and they both ended up flipping the island and defeating the cube monsters. I liked how the cubes would all travel across the map, leading up to them joining together in the middle, but I feel like there was just something missing from this season for some reason. Overall though, I did enjoy it, so maybe B tier, maybe C tier. I think I enjoyed it though for the most part. Let's put it in the B tier. So now the island has been flipped completely upside down, and there's an entire other side of this island with a whole new set of POIs and everything. This is Chapter 3, Season 1, and the Foundation is in the Battle Pass along with a long-awaited skin in Spider-Man. Now I loved the Chapter 2 map, but it was fun getting to explore the Chapter 3 map, and the Spider-Man web-slinger gauntlets made getting around this new map a lot of fun. A lot of people even said the web-slinging in Fortnite was better than in some actual Spider-Man games. And we were introduced to Klombo, this very strange and very large creature that was found on the flipped island. People fell in love with Klombo instantly, and people were excited to see what they would possibly do with him in the upcoming seasons. The answer was nothing. The storyline basically came to a complete halt until the IO showed up in the next season, but playing the game was a lot of fun, so I'm sticking this one in B tier. Tremors would shake the island as the IO used a gigantic drill tank to drill their way to the new side of the island. It's here in Chapter 3 Season 2 that we finally get to see the Imagined Order and the Seven go to war. The IO showed up, took over several POIs, and every update the Seven would chase them out of every single one of them. This repeated the entire season until the IO was forced to fall back to their Doomsday device. This is where all of the remaining members of the Seven that we have not been introduced to yet all joined forces together, including a returning Paradigm, to pilot a new version of the Mecha Team leader called Mecha Team Commander. And it was in this season's live event that we finally saw the Seven take down the Imagined Order and free the 0 Point from their clutches. The war itself felt like it kind of dragged a little bit, but it was nice to get to finally meet all of the members of the Seven, and the live event was pretty good too. I think I'm sticking this one in the B tier. So now the IO is no more, and the 0 Point is completely free. Time to celebrate with Chapter 3, Season 3, Vibin'. This season was pretty much just a celebration of the end of a major arc in the Fortnite storyline, as well as behind the scenes being the very last season that Donald Mustard had personally oversaw. Indiana Jones and Darth Vader were both in the Battle Pass, with Vader making his very first appearance as a boss on the map, which would become an annual thing. But as cool as that was, this season just felt so empty. A lot of people were bored with the Vibin' season, until we got the reveal of the Dragon Ball collab. Now, this is just my opinion, and I'm far from the only person who said it, and yes, I am a little biased because Dragon Ball is my personal favorite anime, but that collab saved this season. Now, they did advance the story a little bit by having several members of the Seven just randomly disappear, but I feel like without that big Dragon Ball collab, the season would be very forgettable, so I'm putting it in the C tier. The remaining members of the Seven on the island are left to face the Herald, representing the Last Reality, and her Chrome powers. All of them except the Paradigm quickly fall and are absorbed by the Chrome, going who knows where. The entire season is just the Paradigm trying to find some way to keep the Chrome from spreading all over the island, and she's just not able to find anything that works. Now, as far as gameplay goes, I loved all the Chrome gimmicks, especially when you become this blob and you can travel much faster than you would on foot. But unfortunately, this is the season that gave us the least popular live event of all time. Fractured was going to take us out of Chapter 3 and into Chapter 4, but everyone knew right away all this was an advertisement for the creative mode. It was basically just one big collection minigame on a broken map, and it was really boring. It also felt like it went on forever too. This was like the longest live event that didn't involve any combat at all, and it just soured that whole season for me. So, as much as I love the Chrome gimmick, I cannot forgive it for the Fractured event, and I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. Well, the Chrome destroyed both sides of the old island, so a new island had to be built by the Paradigm before she disappeared. This is Chapter 4, Season 1. Here we're introduced to the Oathbound, which seems to be a very early version or an alternate version of the Imagined Order from a previous timeline, and they're being led by a snapshot of Jino, the IO's true leader. Again, exploring a new island is fun, and it was especially fun using the Shockwave Hammer, which is one of my favorite melee weapons they've ever put in the game. Seriously, if anybody from Epic is watching this video, please find more excuses to put the Shockwave Hammer into more seasons. Now here we've got two storylines happening at the same time that are going to converge, building a portal for the Oathbound and also helping Amy, the AI of the scientist, find the Seven again. We're warned of the Shapeless Man, who is going to come and destroy the island if we don't finish this portal for him, but Amy hijacks that plan and uses the portal to go after the Seven. And what becomes of the Shapeless Man? Absolutely nothing. After this season, they never mention him again. Even though Chapter 7 is bringing the Seven back into focus, we haven't heard from Amy since then either. Now, if you've heard me talk about Chapter 4 before, you'll know that it certainly wasn't my favorite chapter. The gameplay stuff was fun enough, but the storyline sucked during this era of the game, and I think that were it not for the Shockwave Hammer being such a fun weapon, I'd have to put it lower. I'm gonna say though, maybe we stick it in the B tier because at least playing the game was fun. Now what happens when a giant rift opens up in the sky and drops an entire futuristic city down on the island? You get Fortnite Chapter 4, Season 2, Mega City. The Mega City POI was a lot of fun, and we got some pretty cool weapons this season too, including some based on Attack on Titan. This was also the season that gave us a focus on the Peace Syndicate, which had been introduced back in Chapter 3 as they tried to unite all of the other syndicates to push back against the returning Last Reality. This storyline was kind of interesting until we got to the end and realized that the Last Reality was not in fact returning because we prevented their invasion. So that's 2 seasons in a row where we're told that a threat is coming to the island, and rather than get to face off against it and beat it, we're told it's not going to happen. We stopped it already. I mean, after the IO and the Seven are both gone, teasing us with the Last Reality again, and then not giving us that big battle, it was just a weird choice. I'm going to have to stick this season in the C tier, even though there were aspects of it that I really liked. Now let's talk about Fortnite Chapter 4, Season 3, Wilds. It wasn't good. Dr. Sloan returned and that was cool, but she didn't really do anything important this season except tease the next big threat, which was for the next season. Optimus Prime was in the Battle Pass, and that gave us some voice lines from Peter Cullen in the game for a bit, so that was pretty cool. But other than that, I don't remember really liking much of anything else about this season. It just felt like the entire purpose of the story was teasing Season 4. So I'm gonna stick this one in the D tier because it's just such a low point in the game for me. So what was this big threat that they spent the entire Season 3 building up to? The arrival of a time-traveling vampire. Sloan is back for this season, and we're teaming up with her and some other agents to take Thorn down and steal his time machine. Why does Dr. Sloan want to take this time machine, and why has she very quietly brought Agent Jones back into the story? Because Optimus Prime told us in the last season that the Zero Point was dead. So now we're going to go back in time and try to stabilize the Zero Point by resetting everything. Kato Thorn used the power of Fort Nightmares that year to transform into his monstrous bat form. And was he a big threat with that new transformation? Nah. We destroyed the main antagonist of this season in a weekly quest. That made the character feel like such a pushover that I feel like it hurt the season overall. And so even though there were some pretty cool weapons in this season, overall the storyline just didn't hold me, and I feel like it made Kato Thorn seem like a very weak enemy. Last Resort goes in the C tier. So we have the time machine now. What does Sloane want to do with it? She wants to go back to the beginning, back to Chapter 1 to put everything right again. Now we're in our very first mini-season of the game, the original Fortnite OG. Now, somebody who never played Chapter 1, I was very excited about this new season, and I enjoyed it a lot. Now, some Chapter 1 fans were not happy that it wasn't a complete remake of the Chapter 1 map and gameplay mechanics, but I thought it worked very well and was able to be both a little taste of the past while taking us forward. Now, the storyline for this season was basically all of Chapter 1 sort of merging together in a mishmash of chaos that really should not have been happening, but it was really cool to see it play out, and I think that the live event at the end of the season was a lot of fun. I'm going to stick this one in the B tier because overall, very cool season. Not to mention the fact that this season was so popular, it eventually became a permanent game mode. The Big Bang event gave us the birth of a new Omniverse, and with it a new Fortnite Island, in Chapter 5 Season 1. The Underground season felt like a fresh start for the game's story, and I was worried for a while that everything else that had happened up until that point was going to be forgotten, but it wasn't, and I think that's a good thing. I liked the society and the build-up to the reveal of Pandora's box, and Peter Griffin was in the Battle Pass after years of just being a meme. Not to mention, this is where we meet Hope, who goes on to become one of the most important characters in the entire Fortnite storyline. New seasons are always pretty fun to experience, so I'm sticking this one in the B tier because it was a pretty solid start to this new chapter. Of course, after Valeria, the leader of the society, opened up Pandora's box, that sent Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, into a rage, and he wanted to destroy every mortal alive. Chapter 5 Season 2 was all about the mortals versus the gods, although most of the gods ended up being sympathetic to our cause and wanted to see the big man taken down. This is where we got the Underworld as a biome on the map, and I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite biomes that they've ever had in the game. Not to mention the mythics in this season were all top tier, though Zeus's lightning was sort of weak to use because of how long it took to throw the lightning bolts out, but overall I still liked it. Zeus was also, like Kato Thorn, taken down in a storyline quest, and I do have issues with it, but I feel like the gameplay this season was so good, I'm going to stick it in the A tier. Before his defeat, Zeus used the power of Pandora's box again to summon a wasteland on one side of the island, which brought forth the terrifying Megalodon. The wrecked season of Chapter 5 Season 3 was quite controversial at the time because the game expected you to spend a lot of time behind the wheel. Some people hated it, some people loved it and thought it was very refreshing. I am part of the latter group. This season felt so unique and I thought that was really cool. Plus you had like the nitro charge powers which would allow you to keep your momentum for a good while. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I liked Megalodon as a villain even though he was a little bit of a Bane ripoff, but he felt like a real serious threat and I enjoyed him. It was also fun to speculate on who his mysterious partner was that had been appearing like a phantom around the map. And oh yeah, we did find out who that was in a live event. At the risk of everyone calling me stupid, I'm putting this one in the A tier because I loved it and you can't convince me not to love it. So who was Megalodon's mysterious partner that ended up backstabbing him? Well, if you had talked to Magneto the previous season, you would probably already know it was Dr. Doom. Yes, Doom was back on the island, and this time not to fight off Galactus, but to claim the island for himself and turn it into a new Latveria. Chapter 5 Season 4 Absolute Doom brought us a brand new full Marvel season, including some pretty cool mashup collab skins. And though Doom did not appear himself until midway through the season, there was a Doom bot you could go and fight in the Cathedral. What was cool about this boss is that it could actually use Doom's foot dive attack from the Marvel vs. Capcom series. That's quite the reference. And Doom's later appearance would serve as the live event for the season, a raid battle with everyone on the planet trying to take down a giant version of Doom. But even tapping into what remained of the powers of Pandora's box was not enough to win Doom the day, and we sent him packing. And that's where the story ended and took us into Fortnitemares, which didn't have anything at all to do with the storyline. It was a weird choice to end the story mid-season just to make way for Fortnitemares, but I kind of get it, and I think it made Fortnitemares by itself more enjoyable. Overall, pretty cool season. I'm putting it in the B tier. Now, somehow, the chaos of that year's Fortnitemares event gave us a Snoop Dogg and Ice Spice concert. that actually was happening in real time that then led us into a remix season of Chapter 2. And boy was it fun. Now, much like the OG season, this wasn't an exact remake of the Chapter 2 island, but it was close enough for me. I loved it. There was a bit of a storyline with Hope trying to reach back out to her sister Valeria by saying that the underground had been dissolved and everyone was moving on from what the society had done and all of the chaos from Pandora's box, but that storyline didn't really go anywhere. And the live event for this season, even though it's a concert event, is easily one of the best ever. Snoop Dogg and Ice Spice reappeared with Eminem this time, but the true headliner of the event was a tribute to Juice WRLD, including a full music video for his song Empty Out Your Pockets. That music video is one of the most beautiful things to have ever come out of Fortnite, and even on that video alone I could put it in the A tier, but it was overall a very, very fun season. I loved going back to the Chapter 2 map. It's gotta go in the A tier. Now, the Juice WRLD event saw Hope and Jones travel to a brand new island, and with them came a 0-point shard. It's another new chapter as we jump into Chapter 6 Season 1 Hunters, and we track down demons that have taken the 0-point shard for themselves. Here we're introduced to Kendo, Jade, and Daigo, otherwise known as the Spirit Siblings, who are charged with protecting this island. Jade gets too close to the spirit realm and ends up trapped there even though humans aren't supposed to be able to enter the spirit realm, and her brother Daigo decides to tap into some forbidden magic to try to free her. All the while, Godzilla and King Kong show up on the island to cause chaos as players can transform into them and become giant bosses on the map for the very first time. That was very cool. Being able to play Fortnite as Godzilla and stomp around and use his atomic breath and just level everything in sight is one of the coolest game mechanics they've ever had. Oh, and Baymax was in the Battle Pass too, which is very easy to forget because they didn't do anything at all with him. An interesting storyline with some cool new characters, and you can play as Godzilla? Go into the A tier. Now, Daigo did free his sister from the spirit realm, but that didn't satisfy his thirst for revenge. He wanted to go in there and destroy the demons. In order to do that, he needed more power. And to get that power, he had to team up with Fletcher Kane, a mob boss kind of character that was introduced with Chapter 6 Season 2, Lawless. Now, Fletcher Kane really wasn't that interesting of a character, to be quite honest. He was a mob boss. Other than his ties to Midas as a former rival, he was just there to sort of give Daigo the means to get into the spirit realm again. But he did have a pretty cool weapon. That baseball bat would knock enemies back a pretty good distance, and it was pretty fun to just run up to people and smack them with it. This time we were forced to team up with Midas, even though he's still a pretty shady character. But I didn't really like this season that much. The POIs weren't that interesting, but I did like the gameplay, so I think I'm gonna stick this one in the B tier. Daigo's plan succeeds, but before we can follow up on that storyline, we gotta stop and have a Star Wars mini-season. Now, in theory, this was a good idea, but I feel like in practice, it just didn't work out as well as people had hoped. All of the regular guns in the game were replaced with Star Wars lasers, meaning you didn't have to go and find ammo anymore. And, of course, we had the lightsabers back, and those are always fun. And I did like the TIE Fighters and X-Wings being actual vehicles you could pilot, but they felt really slow. The Star Wars POIs were pretty fun to go to, and we even got to see some very interesting characters join the game. I mean, we got a Darth Jar Jar Binks skin for crying out loud. But this was also the same season that they introduced the Darth Vader AI voice feature, and it went over about as well as you could expect it to. In no time at all, players were able to find ways around the AI's programming and get it to say like the F word and a few different slurs. Needless to say, they pushed out a hotfix to keep it from doing that real quick, but the damage was already done. Plus, nobody really wanted that feature in the first place. The whole thing was dumb. I actually missed the live event for this season, though from what I understand it had absolutely nothing to do with the story whatsoever, and with the AI thing, I just can't care about the season. I'm putting it in D only because I still enjoyed some of the gameplay stuff. But destroying the Death Star did help bring in the new season by destroying one of the portals on the island and unleashing the new and improved, I guess you could say, version of Daigo that had been possessed by the demons. The Death Star's explosion also somehow gave a bunch of characters superpowers. Don't ask me, I didn't write this crap. As nonsensical as it sounds, it actually was very enjoyable. And they actually retooled the Godzilla feature from before. This time, instead of becoming a giant kaiju and stomping around the island, you become the Man of Steel and you can fly around and punch things. So the Spirit siblings are back in the story, and one of our old allies is now an enemy. Plus, we got Superman flying around, and Midas is even aligned with Jones and Hope now, so things are getting really interesting. And through this whole season, even though Daigo is the main threat on the island, we're being told he's bringing in someone even more powerful. I also missed this live event, but I did watch it, and I think it looked pretty cool. Superman kind of just swoops in and takes care of the threat all by himself, but it was pretty fun to watch. Gotta say, this was a pretty enjoyable season. All of the superpowers were fun to use, and I loved flying around as Superman. I'm putting this one in the A tier. Soul Clark managed to get the Demon King to retreat for a little while. Unfortunately, that did not stop the upcoming Demon Bug invasion. Hope and Jonesy find themselves aligned with superheroes once again, but this time it's more of the Super Sentai variety. I'm sure plenty of people will agree with me on this, but I think that Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 4, Shock and Awesome, really did live up to its name with the inclusion of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That initial reveal trailer transitioning from the CGI to full live action and even changing the aspect ratio, masterpiece. And we got to play as the Megazord in a similar fashion to the Godzilla feature from Season 1? It couldn't get any better. I did think though that the bug invasion didn't really feel that threatening. In the storyline, sure it was a big deal, but gameplay-wise, it was very easy to avoid the bugs, and I feel like that sort of undercuts their threat. Then the bugs randomly left, and we were treated to a Fortnitemares featuring the likes of Jason Voorhees, the K-pop Demon Hunters, and Scooby freaking Doo. Banger after banger after banger. This led up to a live event where the Dark Presence finally arrives on the island, but we don't stay here for too long because he chunks us into another reality. But I've got to say, Chapter 6 Season 4 is one of my favorite seasons of the game ever. If any of these seasons has to go in the A tier, it is this one. Now we find ourselves on a different island. This time though, someone has managed to get their hands on a small piece of the Dark Presence's 0 Point Shard. And that person is Homer Simpson. That's right, we've made our way to Springfield from The Simpsons, and Hope and Jones are trying to get that 0 Point Shard back from Homer before he can cause any real damage. Now, Homer's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and he quickly realizes that he has stumbled upon reality-altering ultimate power, and decides to actually try to use it for good. He's just not very good at doing good. Before long, everyone's mad at him, and he tries to get rid of the shard, but that just creates a whole bunch of weird toxic clones of himself that then later, upon being destroyed, reform him in the sky as a giant in his underwear. Thankfully, Hope and Jones are actually able to get the shard back from the inside of his belly, and they manage to find a way off of the Springfield Island and back to the Chapter 6 Island, and they decide to bring Homer along because Hope and Jones have an interesting plan on how to combat the Dark Presence. The 0-hour live event at the end of this mini-season may be one of the biggest spectacles that Fortnite has ever put on, and I would say, after rewatching it over and over again, is my personal favorite event they've ever done. All of the major collabs from this entire chapter, from Godzilla, Superman, the Power Rangers, Scooby-Doo, and Homer Simpson himself, and even some of the Star Wars stuff, made appearances in this live event to take on this gigantic demon, and it was a glory to behold. In the end, we take down the Dark Presence and get the 0 Point Shard back, which takes us into Chapter 7, and where we currently are in the game today. This season was the shortest time we have ever collectively spent on any version of an island in the game, but it was so memorable and very, very fun, and the live event just blows all of the others out of the water. I have to put this in the A tier. There is no other place for it. And there you go, that's my tier list of all of the Fortnite seasons since I started playing the game back in Chapter 2 Season 2. There have been high points and low points in the game for sure in all these years, but I think that the high points definitely outnumber the low ones. But what do you think about my tier list? Do you agree with it? Or are there some things in my list that you would change out? Let me know in the comments what your favorite seasons were. Thanks for watching this video, I really appreciate it. If you want to support my channel, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Now, I'm going to start figuring out where I would put Chapter 7 Season 1 in a tier list. I mean, this was the season that they put SpongeBob in the game. That's it. We don't need a tier list. It's over. Best season ever.